Ladies and gentlemen, the King is back. Lewis Hamilton has again taken the motorsport world by storm, finishing second in the Australian Grand Prix. The race was held at Melbourne's iconic Albert Park circuit, featuring some of the world's best Formula One drivers. After a slow start to the season, the Silver Arrows appear to have found their groove. But how did Hamilton win the race in Melbourne? Well, our video will walk you through the highlights of the race, which saw a record-breaking 444,631 spectators. This Grand Prix, though, is unlike any other, with 3 red flags thrown, and we invite you to join us for a ride you won't forget. So, buckle up and let's get into the details of the Mercedes duo's incredible feat. Lewis Hamilton has reclaimed his pole position following a thrilling Australian Grand Prix won by Max Verstappen and Red Bull. While Hamilton did not win the race, his second place finish was enough to put him in first place in another set of standings, F1's official power rankings for drivers. The 7-time world champion proved that even at 38, he still has what it takes to dominate the competition. Hamilton was up against his teammate Russell, who managed to edge him out by a 10th and qualify ahead of him for the 3rd time this season. Verstappen was equally impressive, praising his team's efforts in getting the tyres ready to push as soon as possible. However, with a challenging race ahead, keeping the tyres alive for an exciting race will be difficult. Verstappen led the World Drivers' Championship with 44 points heading into the weekend, 1 point ahead of teammate Sergio Perez and 14 points ahead of Fernando Alonso in 3rd. Red Bull also led the Constructors' Championship with 87 points, followed by Aston Martin and Mercedes, both with 38. There were no additional stand-in drivers for the race, so all drivers and teams were the same as on the season entry list. A 4th DRS zone was proposed before the race between turns 8 and 9, but it was scrapped after the first day of practice due to safety concerns raised by drivers. However, after receiving positive feedback from the FIA and Formula One, Grand Prix chief Andrew Westacott confirmed that the DRS zone would return for this year's race. It's sure to heighten the anticipation for what promises to be another thrilling race at Melbourne's iconic Albert Park circuit. Sergio Perez experienced a technical issue during the first qualifying segment, resulting in a red flag when he became stuck in a gravel trap. Lando Norris collided with some gravel during the second practice session, but was able to return to the track. However, he and Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda, Kevin Magnussen and Nick de Vries were eliminated. In the 3rd practice session, Max Verstappen encountered some minor issues with his car. During the race, George Russell passed Max Verstappen, suffering from wheel spin, to take the lead, but Hamilton quickly passed him. After colliding with Lance Stroll, Charles Leclerc spun into the gravel, necessitating the use of the safety car. The race resumed on lap 4, but was quickly halted when Alexander Albon lost control of his car and collided with another vehicle at turn 7, bringing out the safety car again. Russell and Sainz changed tyres during this time, but the race was stopped, so marshals could clear the track of debris from Albon's car. Russell and Sainz could not compete because rivals could change their tyres during the stoppage. After the second restart, Hamilton maintained his lead, but was passed by Verstappen using DRS into turn 9. On lap 14, Russell passed Pierre Gasly for 4th, and Sainz passed Lance Stroll the following lap. Russell's power unit caught fire in lap 18, forcing Mercedes to retire for the first time this season and causing a brief virtual safety car period. Verstappen went on to win the race with a 10-second lead over Hamilton at the finish. Kevin Magnussen's right rear collided with the wall in turn 2, damaging his rear suspension and causing the tyre to come off. On lap 54, the race was red flagged once more. The race was restarted with Verstappen in the lead. As the cars approached turn 1, Gasly and Esteban Ocon collided with the wall, and Nick de Vries and Logan Sargent ended up in the gravel and out of the race. Stroll was able to recover his car and continue racing. For the 3rd time, the race was called off. Cars that had not yet arrived at the first timing line when the race restarted on the final lap were disqualified and removed from the starting lineup. Max Verstappen won the Australian Grand Prix for the first time, followed by Hamilton and Alonso. Perez finished 5th and starting from the pit lane. McLaren's first points of the season came courtesy of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. No further action was taken after investigation into Gasly's crash with Ocon. The stewards determined that no further investigation was required into the first lap contact between Stroll and Leclerc. During the race, Sainz was penalised 5 seconds for colliding with Alonso on the second restart. After the race, this penalty was applied to his total race time, dropping him from 4th to 12th in the final classification. Over team radio and after the race, Sainz blasted the penalty, calling it the most unfair penalty I've ever seen in my life. Alonso, who was in the collision, agreed that the penalty was excessive. Haas objected to the provisional results after the race, saying that Hülkenberg and Haas could have made their debut on the podium if Sainz hadn't been given the 5-second time penalty. Hamilton received a 9 out of 10 rating because he displayed his racecraft to manage his tyres while keeping the cunning Fernando Alonso behind. with his staunch defence drawing some positive post-race reviews from the Spaniard. Hamilton's Mercedes teammate George Russell scored 9 out of 10, allowing him to share P1 with Hamilton after a good drive was hampered first by an untimely red flag and then ruined entirely by a mechanical DNF. Verstappen questioned Hamilton's adherence to the rules, but admitted that he would have done the same if he hadn't been on the pole. The rules are quite clear about what you're allowed to do on the outside, but it's not followed. Red Bull driver Max Verstappen said after the race, "I thought it was pretty decent," Hamilton said. "He braked early and I braked late. I was entirely inside and we made room for each other. I didn't run him off the road and he didn't turn in on me because the point of racing is to avoid collisions." Verstappen later told Sky Sports F1 that he didn't want to make a big deal about the incident. "If it were the other way around, I'd probably do the same," he admitted. "I'd bring it up, but I don't want to make it too big of a deal. I assume the rules would be followed because they were written that way. I believe that under the new regulations, if you're racing from the outside and ahead at the apex, you should be given space at the exit, which I didn't think I was because I was actually avoiding being crashed into." Hamilton, meanwhile, said that he was so happy right now after his remarkable first podium of the season, which followed 5th place finishes in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. "The car has been difficult, and finishing on the podium is truly remarkable, especially given that we hadn't challenged the car," said the 7 times world champion. "I'm overjoyed right now. Red Bull flew by and vanished, so we still have a lot of work to do to catch them. But this gives us real hope and a boost of energy. This reminds everyone to dig deep and keep pushing because the prize is not far away and is within reach. Without a doubt, we can compete with Ferraris and Aston Martins because his car is fast. Max Verstappen is in a different league. He passed me halfway down the straight when he was 10 meters ahead. I don't know how they're so quick on the straight. It's insane. They're simply in another league. This will continue until we can match the straightaway speed and cornering downforce." Lewis Hamilton's victory in the Australian Grand Prix significantly boosts him and his Mercedes team as they attempt to compete with the dominant Red Bull team and their star driver, Max Verstappen. This victory could help Mercedes and Red Bull close the Constructors' Championship standings gap. The Drivers' Championship is still early in the season, but this victory could give Hamilton some momentum and confidence. It's worth noting that Verstappen still holds a commanding lead in the championship, but with so many races remaining in the season, anything is possible. Hamilton and Mercedes' victory could give them the motivation and momentum they need to challenge Red Bull in future races. It's important to remember that Formula 1 is a sport in which minor details can make a big difference, so even a slight improvement in performance or strategy can significantly impact the outcome of a race. As we come to a conclusion with our discussion of Hamilton's victory in the Australian Grand Prix, we'd like to hear from you. Can Hamilton close the gap to Verstappen and Red Bull in the upcoming races? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Please consider subscribing to our channel for more Formula 1 news and updates if you haven't already. Remember to turn on the notification bell to keep up with our latest videos. Until next time, goodbye.